Okay, ladies and gentlemen, next presenter offering to tell us about what we can get for nothing and for free, Gabriel Cirlig.
Check, check. Szép napot Budapest, first of all. I'm sorry if my Hungarian is a bit rusty, but the best I can do in like a couple of hours. First thing first, I'd like to see the audience with whom I'm speaking at the moment. So can we do like a show of hands who around here is a developer? Okay, who is an Android developer? Oh man. Okay, let's try another way. Who likes money? Oh yeah, that's better. I like money. See, I mean, we already have chemistry, so today we're gonna talk about how we can make money with low risks and a lot of profit. But now I guess it's my turn. So they call me the public transportation hacker back home in Bucharest. I managed to do a MeFair hack at some point, and this was basically my gateway into cybersecurity. I was a developer before that, and after that I discovered that I couldn't travel for free inside Bucharest, so I decided to hack my car as well. It didn't run for free, though, so I still had to pay for gas, and it didn't pay the bill, you know. Just a lot of privacy, information, very sensitive stuff. I recommend that you go and watch it, and if you own a Mazda, your car can be owned like very quickly if you don't have all of the latest updates installed. And finally, I decided to settle working for human security, ex-White Ops, hunting killer bots. They aren't there yet, so the best we can do right now is just hunting bots that do ad fraud. I mean, I hope you enjoy all of the ads that were presented today. Damn it. All right. But ads can be way more annoying than this, and they can be very, 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 very profitable for you. So let's do a simple numbers game, right? Let's say that ad fraud is a business, right? And in this business, you have a certain market cap, right? There's a certain profit you can gather each year. So what kind of numbers are we talking about? Let's do a show of hands again. Do you think that it's in the millions? Tens of millions? All right, you're aiming big. I like that, aiming high. Hundreds of millions of dollars each year. No, man, that's rookie numbers. Billions. It's actually $34 billion for 2021, and it's expected to grow to double in size by the end of next year, according to the internet. Let's call it like that. So even if you have like a small-time business, and you get like 0.1% of the market cap, you would still generate 34 million in revenue each year. That's more than what Candy Crush used to make at some point before they launched. But it can get way better than that, and we're gonna dive into it. How is this possible, first of all? Well, this is the whole ad tech ecosystem. We've got data suppliers, agencies, agency trading desks, DSPs, exchanges, ad networks, vertical network, targeted networks, performance. We've got data suppliers again, ad servers, retargeting, and they all tie in with each other. So basically, it is very, 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 very hard to follow the money. On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. We all know that. So on the internet, when you do ad fraud, nobody knows that you're even there, actually, because it's actually one of the lowest risk, highest reward industries when it comes to fraud out there. I mean, for bank fraud, you can get busted. For credit card fraud, you can get busted. For payment system fraud, you can get busted. But for ad fraud, it's not criminally allowed yet or disallowed to do that kind of activity. It's just breaching the terms and conditions of a company. And of course, there's always like the trade-off between for a company between announcing that they've been the target of a massive ad fraud operation and actually lowering the trust the clients have in them, and actually being fair and being fair to the market, or just sweeping it under the rug and call it a day and settling with the parties involved. I mean, so what's the catch? I mean, usually I had this as the final slide, and the version on the internet actually had this. And I thought that, man, that would be like a very bad punchline for the end of the show. What's the catch? How can this be so good? Well, we are the catch. The cybersecurity industry needs to up their game and needs to basically not consider ad fraud being done by various apps as possibly unwanted programs, because they are definitely not unwanted. They are definitely unwanted, basically. They can eat up your CPU cycles, they heat up your phone, they increase your phone bill at the end of the day. And remember that there was this malware called DrainerBot? It did ad fraud, and it actually burned batteries in the process. And we're gonna have like a taste of that a bit later as well. But first, let's do a bit of history of all of the botnets that have been going on around there. We've got the Earthlink Spammer, one of the first that got actual money from developing a botnet. They did 1.5 million emails and raked in 3 million in cash. In the end, they got sued for 25 million. So quite a bad deal for the developer. We had Grum, who again was doing a lot of email spam, and they raked in around 2.7 million at the end of their career. Then, as we progressed, the threats out there started progressing as well. And actually building botnets can be a little bad for your business, because you can get indictments for the police. The cybersecurity laws became stricter and stricter, so they went in other directions, and they started doing fake traffic and ad fraud in order to make it harder from a legal perspective to punish them. So Artro, rookie numbers, 50K per month. Then we have Methbot and Eve, and Methbot was doing $3 million per day. That's more than Candy Crush was making. And now we have Eve, $2.5 million per day confirmed. That's way, way, way more than the most successful game out there, which is, again, Candy Crush, is making every day, like every day. And fortunately, Eve is a success story for us. Eve got shut down at the end of their life cycle. It was one of the most sophisticated operations that we at White Ops and now Human managed to shut down. We had to do an 18-month industry collaboration that basically raised the awareness in law enforcement, and it actually led to a multinational takedown and arrests. And in 2021, I think, they were actually charged for cyber wire fraud, I think, and put in prison. But it was for 3 people out of the whole network. So what can you, I don't think it was only 3. I mean, definitely it wasn't only 3 people. So because an operation that actually had 3 subset operations need way more. It's like a business already, need way more people to work. So they had BGP hijacks, they had Kofter infections, and the residential proxy network. And what they were doing, they were actually building counterfeit websites, and they used the bots that would route the traffic through US-based residential proxies in order to view their own ads. And they did that all day long, 24 hours, 7 days a week, and managed to make $5.2 million. Of course, this basically attracted the attention of the authorities, and in the end, I mean, sucks for them. They got shut down and they got arrested. So fraudsters out there had to reprofilate. They no longer use traditional botnets. They don't do fraud. They do data-driven, intelligent marketing. And this was a campaign from 2019, and it was done by the means of apps on the Play Store. They are quite inconspicuous. They didn't do anything strange, nothing weird, until you'd see ads and weird websites popping on your screen. You know, there was a trend at one point. It started going down in the last year, but you just browse randomly on your phone, and then poof, you would have a weird website popping on your screen. This is called out-of-context advertising. It's, again, a breach of the terms and conditions, and companies can actually litigate against you. Again, it's a civil court issue, so it's not criminally punishable. That's why they are data-driven intelligent marketing. They are not doing anything suspicious. And now to get a bit into the nitty-gritty, maybe someone wants to put a signature and hunt for more threats. They did this through Android's intent receivers, and whenever you would turn the Bluetooth on and off, or turn your Wi-Fi on and off, poof, you would have another ad popping up. They actually, in order to evade the uninstallation of the apps, because yeah, man, it's Android, I can just uninstall the app. Well, you might think you would be uninstalling the app, but actually they built a fake shortcut on your home screen and hide the original shortcut of the app. So whenever you would uninstall the fake shortcut, the app was still there. You still thought that it was uninstalled, but you would still get ads popping up all the time. And we shut them down. We took them from the Play Store, but of course that they evolved and adapted, because it's very easy to do adaptation when it comes to ad fraud, because you don't get any more ads on your apps. You just randomize, or they get taken down. So you just need to vary your TTPs, and at one point, you're going to get ads again in your apps, and you can carry on. And now we have Tushu that added a bit more, like some more tricks. First of all, they started using obfuscation and some simple XOR encoding. They also did some pretty cool evasion techniques. They really hated Trend and Google. Google mostly because they knew that sometimes apps get popped on internal farms in order to get their traffic and behavior analyzed, and they wanted to avoid all of those sandboxes. So they would look for the Wi-Fis that were around, and if they would find something from Trend or Google, they would just seize their whole operation. They also looked for apps that contained test in their name, again, in order to evade any kind of test devices where a researcher might do some kind of reversing. And they were partially successful. We still stopped them and got the chance to play whack-a-mole once some more with another app that we're going to call Poseidon. Actually, not an app, but a whole actor. Poseidon, again, had a pretty big presence on the Play Store. It was an operation around like tens, in the range of tens of apps. They used the exact same technique of displaying out-of-context ads. And you just scroll around on your phone, play a game, and pop, you'd get an ad on top of of that game. And most advertisers would just accept what is called an impression, which is the ad being viewed as actionable and legitimate, and you'd get your money. Even better, if they pop up at such random behaviors, you would be tempted to just tap it by accident and also give them a payout for actually clicking the ad. They did this randomness by basically hijacking as many intents as possible. So you would install or replace an app, you would get an ad. You would pop in a call, you get ads. Maybe you can even touch it with your face, bonus points. You mount some media, you get an ad. And that was done by registering high priority receivers in order to be the first ones catching those intents, basically. They took this to a whole art, and they even built an SDK, being, again, an intelligent marketing platform or whatever. And they would go to developers, tell them, hey, I see that your game is not making a lot of revenue. Do you want to embed this SDK? We're going to, hey, kid, want to buy some ads? We're going to make it really profitable for you. And it worked. The operation was so successful that they actually added, in addition to the out-of-context ads, some hidden ads services and auto-clicking on those hidden ads. So even though you weren't seeing anything, they would pop a hidden web view on your phone and just tap ads in the background. In the meantime, Google made a lot of improvements to the way that Android apps are being run and processed. They were either shut down from the sandbox perspective, or it wasn't possible from an API perspective to display web views while you were just running as a service. But they adapted, they started adding them to notifications, and they kept playing the whack-a-mole, game of whack-a-mole. And they used the same technique. They would look for intents. So whenever you would unlock your phone, you would get an ad by looking for the user presence. They would also randomly delay it in order to trick you. So it wasn't always after unlocking the phone. They would also wait a specific amount of time as an extra measure for evasion. And they also added more persistence mechanism. As I said, Android kept upping its API access from the side of malicious apps, but they would keep the persistence by rebinding a specific job via the job scheduler and pop from now and then and run some code saying, hey, can I run ads right now? And then the answer would be no, you can't. OK, I'm sleeping. After 1 minute, they would pop again. Can I run ads right now? Yeah, you can. And they would display a random ad. And we shut them down. And they adapted and evolved. And added one more thing. Let's look at the code. This was Poseidon. This is Neptune. Poseidon, Neptune. Poseidon, Neptune. See the similarities? They, again, added obfuscation because most of the solutions back then was just blocking them based on the strings embedded inside the DEX file. And they added some extra functionality that allowed them to spoof what is called the app ID back then. So they would modify a lot more data in addition to that. And they would also add accelerometer Y, Z, and rotational Z, Ys, and click delays in order to make it a lot harder for analytics companies or anti-fraud companies to actually detect them. The next one is one of the more interesting cases. It's a case of monkey patching. So for whoever doesn't know what monkey patching is, it is the process through which you override a function pointer in code that is actually running in order to hijack the execution flow and basically do whatever you want with other people's code. And in our case, it was actually forcing you to stay in an ad and watch it till the end. So there was no escaping from them. In order to maximize the revenue, they would just pop an ad, and you wouldn't be able to click the X, even if you tried, until they were satisfied with the result and they would receive the final impression metrics on it. It's propagated through the Play Store. Again, they were around, like, in the dozens, bypassing the store's policies and doing their nefarious deeds. And this is where the magic happened. They used the same techniques as before, job schedulers, services, rescheduling themselves, and they would use an invocation handler from Java. Who here is a Java developer? Or was a Java developer? So this is a proxy, a Java proxy. It's a very legitimate way of doing tests from what I knew at some point. I hope that I'm right. But basically overriding parts of the code that you need to switch at runtime. And they were changing this method in case they found that you would invoke, this method was invoked, they would change its value from true to false in order to prevent you from shutting the ads. The method was from Google's SDK, so you would be stuck with that ad running nonstop. Now, let's stop the monkey business and get to more serious operations. This one is called Terracotta. It was inspired by the great Terracotta army from a tomb of a Chinese emperor of soldiers that looked kind of the same, but they had tiny differences from each other. The amount of detail that went into building that was insane. But the boilerplate, they used certain, let's call it copied and pasted templates on which they would add the features. And this is how we spotted them. We would see traffic that could cluster really well in certain pools, basically, around certain areas. And this meant that somebody is very bad at producing randomness when it comes to viewing ads. So we started looking for the app. We could not find it, unfortunately, because they are also spoofing the app name of the app that was generating the income. Now, the thing is that you don't need a certain app to cash in. You just need to be the right publisher. So the money comes to the publisher and not to the app ID, basically, to the developer of the app. So they were like all over the place with all of these devices that looked to be copied and pasted. And fortunately, we managed to find an IP of an app, of an entry that was very close to one of our investigators. Very, very, very close, in a hospital. And he personally knew the network administrator over there, so just did some human intelligence, and they actually identified the person who had the phone. And the phone got the person got a very cool offer, a brand new phone versus a bug-ridden mess full of malware. Of course, they accepted. It was like a no-brainer, especially because the phone had a battery that drained very, very, very fast, and it actually was very hot to the touch. So we put it into the lab. We kind of gave access to the whole reversers, and this was the first time we actually did some live forensics on a device that was running some kind of adware. Now, the most suspicious one from the whole cluster of apps installed was a coupons app. And this was in the times of COVID. COVID just hit. A lot of people were fired. They needed cash. And we have an app that was promising $500 at Best Buy, IKEA, and Walmart. It was like an instant sell, basically, for a lot of people. And it was not the only one. There were multiple coupon apps. You would have to keep it on your phone for, I think, 60 days, I can't remember correctly, or 30 days. And you could use the coupon after that. A lot of people obviously forget that they could reap in the benefits after 1 month. So they would just leave it in there. It was very small. I mean, you couldn't, it wouldn't hurt anybody. Well, which proved to be not true. And inside the app, a whole React Native layer was unpacked. And it wasn't only like that innocent-looking coupon. It was a whole React Native app that downloaded a secondary payload from a command and control server inside Firebase. And the secondary payload contained a web view, and inside the web view, they would render video ads 24/7 without stopping. And this is what basically led to the high data usage. It wasn't DrainerBot that made it into the news, but it was something very close. It appeared after DrainerBot, basically. And after visiting the C2 and tapping gently on their door, we find something more worrying. The guys were also preparing to deliver proper malware. So no more games. They wanted to get into the big boys business. Although I still think that adware pays way better than malware. The next one was called Rainbow Mix, because they were all over the place, just like the rainbow. All of the colors, on all of the stores, around 300 apps. There's more underneath the GIF, but I mean, I couldn't get all of them on the inside this presentation. And they did out-of-context ads as well. You just play with your phone, and you would get these random ads. And if you look closely, you can see that they were actually spoofing the name of the application. So let's wait a bit. There we go. That's YouTube, for whoever doesn't know. Just some small-time tampering and editing the icon of the app, of the activity that was being instantiated. And people would think, oh, wow, like Google got so greedy. Oh, my God, they're showing me all of the ads all the time. It was actually them. And the traffic wasn't that big, actually. But having 300 apps that flew under the radar generate more traffic and more revenue than having one app that would just make you rich like instantly overnight. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that bad guys do. They get greedy, like a medium-sized operation can just fly under the radar and mix with everybody else and make more money on the long term than an instant hit that would make you a billionaire overnight. And the interesting part about Rainbow Mix was that they sat on the Play Store long enough to accumulate reviews. And all of them had this interesting C-shaped distribution. They would have a lot of good reviews initially, and as people installed them, they would start popping in the bad reviews. And this led to this characteristic, like very polarized type of review pattern. And they managed to do this via a very simple trick. All the bad people know it. The Google Play team doesn't want you to know this bad trick. Can you guess it? It's packers. They would use packers to obfuscate the entirety of their bad code, although they couldn't hide their bad intent. They had an intent receiver registered inside Google's namespace, trying to somehow blend in. And of course, you're not gonna see this kind of intent receivers from a legitimate SDK at any point. Basically, whenever you would install, remove, replace, scan for the Wi-Fi's, boot your phone, basically do anything on your phone, this bad guy would pop up. It's a wrapper around this com.timus.a class. And whenever this was invoked, it would get some instructions from the command and control server and display the ad. And fraud, Google Iron Source, Unity, whatever. They have the flavor of the month every time. The C2 was a hacked web page because I could find this domain name somewhere on Quora when somebody was asking, hey guys, how do I do whatever Python stuff that guy wanted to do? And somebody gave a link to to pythonexample.com. They hacked it was a blog spot, I think? No, a WordPress, and turned it into the main command and control channel. And now we're gonna turn around and talk about the big guys, because up until then, with the exception of Eve, we talked about small-time crooks that would just blend in, and we squashed them. And fortunately, we managed to kind of shut down this annoying trend of having out-of-context ads all the time and interrupting your browsing habits. These guys, however, they did around 80% of ad traffic on CTV. CTV, for whoever doesn't know, means connected TV. It's all of those smart TVs that are rolling right now. It's Roku's, it's Philips, Samsung, and so on. Apple TV, for example, is a good example of a connected TV. And they would hide inside the, how can you call it, the anonymity provided by the implementation of the CTV ad verification system. Inside the CTV world, we have something called server-side ad injection. And you have two types of displaying the ads. You have the typical ones, as you see on YouTube. So you load the clip, and then it starts to buffer the clip, and then it stops, and it starts to buffer the ad, and then you see the ad ends, and you resume the playback of the clip. And sometimes this can be a bit heavy on the CPU and annoying, especially if you have a bad network. Server-side ad injection, however, creates a continuous stream of playback, and you can you won't see any kind of buffering or interruption or changes in compression or whatever, because it is so streamlined. And the server-side ad injection server would communicate to the DSPs, to the advertisers, and announce that, hey, 11 million people saw our ads today. Trust us, it's for real. And then the DSPs and advertiser would have to talk back to us and say, hey, did these guys really show 11 million ads today? And we would say yes, because at the same time, the same server would talk with an Android-controlled botnet that was around 500,000 to 1 million strong, and somehow spoof all of the impression pixels that were being sent to us. And they turned this to a whole art. They even made an SDK, and they would take legitimate games and embed it inside the legitimate games. And they would manage to spoof billions of requests, basically. The apps are on the Play Store. Some of them were quite unique. Some of them were shameless ripoffs of other games. For example, the Sling Pack 3D challenge that we see over here was the clone of Disc Wars, for example. So they took the game from here, they put it, and they added their own SDK. And even then, though they had like a total of 500,000 installs, they would still make way more money than all of the legitimate apps. And it started as a very simple clicker. And as we started blocking them and detecting them, they added more and more and more layers. For persistence, they use the same alarm-based persistence that I talked before, like job scheduler, rescheduling jobs all the time in order to persist in the background and not be shut down by Android. They had an obfuscated communication channel with a C2. The key is right here, in case you still want to do some analysis. The work was pulled from the C2 every 30 seconds. So every 30 seconds, they would get a new payload all the time. And the payload included 10 URLs to click, so they could click billions every day, and rake in billions at the end of the day if they wanted to. And the most interesting part is that as we started blocking them, because we are fingerprinting the devices, we're upping up our game, they started implementing their own TLS library in order to spoof the TLS stack of the actual connected TV devices. So they built an OK HTTP3 interceptor, and you can see right here, this is the legitimate default interceptor from OK HTTP3. This was the changed one. And they even had a corner case for Roku, where they would send a stream of bytes that was characteristic to Roku devices in order to, again, trick any kind of sensors that would fingerprint them. They would get the ciphers to use the user agent and any other headers programmatically from the command and control server, and it almost tricked us. But fortunately, in the meantime, we found them, we found the C2, we communicated with everybody involved from Amazon, where they had their infrastructure and all that, and we shut them down for good. And the operation went dark just like that, overnight. Before that, at their peak, more than 4,300 CTV apps were being spoofed, 1 million infected devices, 1 year of activity where they did that continuously, and they really, really, really raked the big bucks. I'm Gabby, and thank you for having the patience to listen to me ranting about ad fraud and about how everybody can make way more money by going dark. But remember that at the end of the day, it is our duty to do the right thing and to not go for the lowest hanging fruit out there. Thank you.